Some people love the changes, some people hate them. Today, we'll debate them. It's time to decide, do we like Lilo and Stitch, the live-action remake from Disney? Will it be a blockbuster, the likes of which we've never seen before? Or will audiences yet again shut the door on the House of Mouse? It's time for an honest review. You need to decide whether you're going this Memorial Day weekend to see Miga Nana Krista again. This movie has the potential to make $1.5 billion to $2 billion at the box office. So yeah, we're going to spend some time talking about it and see what we think about it. Everybody here has seen the film. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get at it right now. All right, we are talking Lilo and Stitch. And this is the cartoon that came out about 20 years ago, give or take. And it's essentially Stitch is a puppy mixed with a little brother, and sometimes he's a little cat-like as well. But he is a mischievous rapscallion, even though he's supposed to be this awful, terrible thing that needs to be extinguished by the aliens of outer space. Really what he does is he drags his butt on the carpet and laughs about it. And he does it repeatedly, right? He's not a killer. He's bad to the bone, if bad to the bone means that he'll lift his leg and fart on you. But that's
probably more destructive in the original version. Yeah, you're probably right there. But
yeah,
I think the reason for that is probably because they don't want kids emulating, and when it's live action,
it's a little less believable in real life than it is in a cartoon for him to get away with what he does in the original film. But
all right, so this is a remake, but it's not exactly the same, and I have big thoughts on it because in some ways there are places where I like certain things better, and then there are places where I'm not going to say that. And I'm also going to be trying to be a little careful because I had high hopes going into this, and I have an affinity for this character. I really, really like the original movie, and I really take hold of the message of Ohana is family, and family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. Like that, I think that's a resonating message that's needed. There's some change to that in this movie. I will say though, when it comes to spoilers, folks, we're not going to spoil anything, but we can say definitively, I believe, movie's not woke. There's not, and panel, you disagree. There's not an inch of woke in this. Fair?
Nope, none of it.
Okay.
I don't think so. Oh,
yeah.
might
If
have
there was, it's
somebody
been completely washed away. Yeah.
All right, let's get somebody on the panel who may disagree with us. Wizard, are you disagreeing? Are you saying it's woke?
I do. I disagree. It's like a 95% not until a very particular moment that I can't discuss because it is very much spoilerific.
Yeah, me and you are going to have the same thoughts. Hang tight. We're going to get there. We're going to go through it without the spoilers first, and then it's on. It's on. In fact, the spoiler-free, folks, may be much shorter than the spoiler because it's hard to talk about what they changed and what we like and dislike. I can tell you, though, it was in the trailer. The scene where they have the water gun fight thing, right? They used the little spritzer from the bar. That was nice. That's an example of something that they changed that I thought went well. And they did some other changes. They did some big changes. Let me get it. I'll tell you. How about I do this? I'll give you a pro and a con. Pro and a con, and then I'll hand it to the panel, and you guys take off with the spoiler-free side of this. So on the pro side, two things. I thought that Stitch and all of his new things that he does as a little rapscallion, I thought they were hilarious. I thought him, there's a part where he climbs like a koala on acid up to the ceiling and is on a fan in an instant. You know, when you let him in the house, it's like that puppy that you unleash in your home for the first time, except times 100. That was great. I thought him rubbing his butt on the floor. This is not in the trailer, but it's not terribly much of a spoiler. He rubs his butt in the trailer, but what he doesn't do, what you don't hear, is that Nani has just cleaned the kitchen when he does that, and he's literally just mocking her. That's so funny. Okay, all the stuff that Stitch does, very funny, very clever. There's a thing at the end that I don't know that I agree with it, but the visual of Stitch in a situation at the end where the camera is pulling away from Stitch. That was magnificent, even if I'm not sure I agree with with it. And then finally, I'll say the con. Here's an easy con for me, and maybe we do that this way for the spoiler-free section. I thought that the CGI for Pleakley and Jumba is the worst CGI I have ever seen in any movie in my entire life. I thought it was worse than the CGI on some PlayStation games from the 90s. I thought you could put up something, you could put up a Tekken cutscene, the original Tekken, and that looks better than them. They actually were so bad, the CGI for Pleakley and for Jumba, that I found them disturbing. And I was very happy when they were not on the screen. I thought they were grotesque. All right, that's my pros and cons. All right, go for it. Who's up next?
I'll go. For me, for a pro, I found the core three of this, that being Stitch, Lilo, and Nani, all perfect. They all, I thought, embodied the characters. I thought Nani was great. She was a good grounding force in the film. I thought the little girl who played Lilo was adorable. I thought she's the closest you can get to capturing the cartoon character in real life. I really enjoyed the emotional heart of the story, which I believe, even with the changes, remains unchanged. It still hit me in the same feels that the original hit me. And this is in my top 5 Disney movies of all time, Lilo and Stitch. I mean,
hang on. Let's argue. Let's argue, Marvin. Is that okay? Can we argue for a minute?
That's fine.
I agree with you on 2 out of the 3. Okay. I agree that the little girl who plays Lilo is phenomenal for a little kid actress. She's great. Mm-hmm. Stitch, perfect. They got the CGI model perfect. Chris Sanders knocks it out of the park. I think Nani's a bad person in this movie. Like, I legit think she's a bad person.
Oh, I don't. I always got the sense that she was trying very hard. Yeah, I
think they grounded her a lot more in the movie than they did in the cartoon, and that might be why some people are having this reaction to it. And I mean, we can kind of... My wife
thinks that I'm wrong about this, so it's okay for me to be wrong. But I'm standing by it. I think she's bad.
I don't know.
I never got that. I never got that sense. I always got the sense that she was trying to do right by her sister. I got the sense that she was trying to hold her family together, that she had made major sacrifices in her life that we can get into later on in the spoiler section to keep her family intact. I thought that she was a good realistic take on a very young woman who is put into a very advanced situation and is at her wit's end. She's literally just pulled to the point of breaking because she's trying to hold everything down. She's got a little girl who has obvious, like problems connecting to other people that she's trying to be this role model for, but it's also shifting the dynamic from being sisters to being a guardian. And then you also had the fact that she's trying to hold the job together. She's trying to get this house in order. She has to get, all this stuff in order for the social workers, which we'll talk about the social workers later. I liked her a lot. I think if I'm gonna give a con about this movie, it's Zach Galifianakis. He's terribly miscast. He was terrible in this movie. And that's also partly because I love Jumba. I love how cartoonishly evil.
Exactly. That's exactly what I said too, because you're 100% right. He does nothing for the character. He doesn't even do a voice. He doesn't do any character to it. It's just, I'm Zach Galifianakis. I'm here. I'm going to do this.
You got that paycheck.
Yeah, he's awful.
And no one has cared about Zach Galifianakis being Zach Galifianakis since the first Hangover movie. It is, it's just now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pro, because or Vash, wasn't this originally supposed to be a Disney Plus release, and then they moved it to theatrical?
I was under the impression as well.
Yep.
That was why I think the CGI was so bad, because it had a Disney Plus budget.
I didn't think it was that bad. It really, not as bad as what.
Name one that's worse, Tom. What's been CGI?
Honestly, almost every Marvel movie, because this movie at least felt like everything was planned. Now, I will agree that I probably would have come up with a better way of presenting those two characters in the real world, because I do agree with you. They are, especially Jumba, is kind of grotesque looking. Like, I don't know why they gave him hair. And some other things, I want to
apologize for putting this on the screen, folks.
Yeah, it looks really kind of weird. Pleakley is not so bad. Pleakley kind of looks about like I figured he would look.
Who designed this? Like, that's not even the nose he had. Just remove the nose from the 3D model. Like that
No.
nose is awful.
It's probably because they didn't have either as an advanced team or as an experienced team working on the Jumbo and Pleakley models. And not only that, they're not in the movie as much because for those who, this is semi-spoilery, so kind of keep this in mind, but it is kind of in the trailers already. To get away from having the two big CGI characters all throughout the film, they have them in these holographic human suits, basically. Right? So they basically end up becoming the two voice actors live on screen for majority of the film. I understand why they did that, but at the same time, it's like, okay, so is that why when we do see them in CGI, they're not as well done as Stitch? Because you guys are right. Like Stitch is done very well. I agree also with Marvin. The best part of this movie is that little girl. She sells this thing. She does as good as a job in this movie as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, however old she is, as Bob Hoskins did in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I have not seen anybody act with somebody who is not there more believably since then. And she sells it better than anybody else in the film. And she's the thing that really kind of grounds her and Stitch together and makes the two of them believable. Because she's there in the moment, right? Like she's whatever it was that like Drew Barrymore was channeling as a kid to do E.T., it's the same kind of thing here, only times 10, right? Because she's carrying this whole movie. I will agree there with you on Nani. Like, the problem with her character is this, is that in the original film, they don't really give you a time frame as far as how long it's been since they lost their parents. In the pictures, Lilo doesn't look any different than she does then. But in this movie, they make it pretty clear that it's been probably about 2 to 4 months, maybe at most, since their parents are gone. So that's where I understand where, like, she is struggling. Lilo is not dealing with this very well. She's still dealing with this whole thing. Why are these two not in therapy? Right? Like, there's a few other things I can't believe.
Because they can't afford it.
Exactly. So that part is played up more, and that gets, and that shadow is over top of Nani a lot more than it is in the original. In the original, it just kind of feels like she's already been an adult for a while. This has been a situation they've been in for a couple of years, even though it can't have been that long, but it feels like it. And it just feels like in the original film, Nani is just a little bit more like lazy than she is anything else. In this movie, you actually get a sense that this Nani actually sacrificed a bunch to get to do what she has to do for Lilo, and she really does, and she's trying desperately. You get the desperation from this version compared to the original. Now, I'm not saying it's better than the original, because I think all of us will agree. The original is better. That's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
But to me, this pulls off like an 8 out of 10 as far as getting that close to the original
Try
film.
this on, Tom, and see what you think. Just tell me what you think about it. I think she's miscast because, to me, I think this version of Nani needed to present as if she's like 20 and in over her head trying to take care of a sister, and she's this woman presents to me more like she's 26 or 27, and that makes it harder for me to dive into that.
I got the opposite. I got she was like 19, 20 compared to the original, where the Nani in the original I felt was what you were saying, was like already in her 20s, and she was probably already out of the house, and she just ended up with custody of her daughter, or I mean her sister, after the parents passed away, as opposed to this, where it feels like this was a sudden thing that happened. Nani was getting ready to go to college, and this happened, and she decided not to.
About Nani, though, this
in
time
some
around.
ways,
this is Nani's movie. She's actually flawless. When
Oh,
we look at it, we can actually
here
play
we
it
go.
back.
Let's dive into it.
She's actually,
I don't agree with that. Lilo is still the center of the film.
Extremely.
I don't know about that. The whole thing is leading up to Nani making it to. I can't get into further because it's going to be massive spoilers.
I will give you this: they do pad out the movie. They do pad out the movie a little bit more with Nani's story and make her more real and grounded. I said that before,
but I am not. I do not believe that this woman lost both of her parents 2, 3, 4, 5 months ago. I don't believe it for a second. I think that comes down to part of the acting, and I don't think that the acting she got outplayed by, however, I don't know how old Lilo is, whether she's 6 in real life right now, but my gosh, she carried every scene.
So what they needed in this movie, one, because they padded it out, a lot of the funny parts from the animated movie that are still in there felt really rushed, and they didn't need to be rushed. Like, we needed to stay with those and just sit for a minute and have a good time. And it was like, we got more stuff.
I didn't feel like it was.
It's really fast.
Oh my gosh. Act 1 is terrible. Act 2 is fine and fun and cute because it's just Lilo and Stitch being Lilo and Stitch, and the two of them are great. But Act 3 is just a mess. So Act 1 and Act 3, not good.
I don't know if I agree with any of that.
Not good.
Try this on for a second. Try this on for a second. So there's the rush that's going on, but there's also the situation here where I think we needed a scene or two for Nani. So I don't think it's necessarily all on the actress. I think we needed a scene or two where we got to see behind the door when she's crying, you know, when she just can't, when she's at her wit's end. We needed like 10 seconds with some sad music so that the audience then can connect with her and be like, oh my gosh, she's giving it everything she's got.
Gonna say,
behind the scenes, she's breaking.
Well, I don't know about her being flawless, and this is where I disagree with her being her movie, because they actually take away one of her more important bits. Because I remember, if I'm remembering, unless I'm remembering wrong, doesn't she have a scene in the original film where she's talking to David that's not in this movie, where she's kind of expressing her stress and all that kind of stuff?
Yes,
basically.
That's the one thing that's big and missing. Spoiler here, kind of, is their romance. Really, in a way, that's been completely removed.
Totally.
We get an end credit.
David got turfed.
If anything, I was going to say that, like, other parts of this, I don't know if I agree with that, because I thought the film clipped along pretty well. I felt like there was stuff that was probably cut out, and then by the time we got to the end of the movie, because minus the credits, this movie is only like 90 some minutes long, so it's still not that much more than the original.
Well, I'll tell you what, where it gets a little speedy, where it gets a little hasty is in the comedy bits, because with a good joke, you got to sit on it. And like in the original, when they're talking about, oh, he's going to land on a planet that's filled with water, like it's over, ha, you know. And then as it zooms in, it slowly peels back, and you get this tiny little blip of green, and it's Hawaii, and all their mouths drop. And in this one, it's like, we got to get that joke in fast because it's part of the original and it's the Easter egg. But just let's go. Now I could be wrong on that. Here's what I think, though. Let's get Ron in on his thoughts, because we're going to debate this. This is a movie that needs to be debated. But in order to debate it, we got to spoil the whole thing. So let's get Ron in, and then because I think there's a debate that has to happen. Go ahead, Ron.
It's a little bit difficult for me. I don't have the comparison. I've only seen snippets of the original. I have not sat through the entire original animated film from beginning to end. I think it's because when it first came out, it was that awkward time in my life. I was trying to remember, what was it, 2003? I think I had a lot of other things going on.
2002.
Yeah, I had a lot of other things. That was it was a weird time in my life. I wasn't going out to the movies a lot back then. And I've never sat down to watch the entire thing. So I didn't, having not had that comparison, this is kind of my Lilo and Stitch, my introduction to the whole storyline. I would agree that Nani definitely needed that one. They could have done it. She's obviously stressed in this movie, but there's no point in time. There's a time when, and I don't know if this is really a spoiler or not, but the social worker has just left. I would have loved to have seen just a moment where Nani's by herself and Lilo catches her and she has to hold back a tear, like she's crying, that like that tear is about to come out, and that doesn't happen. It seems like maybe it was filmed and they cut it out or something like that. It was interesting. But I saw this in a theater. Wasn't a full theater. It was 4:45 today, and I would say the theater was about half full. And at the end of the movie, it got thunderous applause from everybody that was there. So that was amazing. People liked it. It was very, very well received overall. There were my critique is that the opening of it, the whole opening, didn't really feel like they worked on the CGI very well at all for the entire opening scene, the other planet, Stitch's planet. It felt like I was watching a 3D animated movie. Like that's what it felt like to me. It didn't feel like they were trying to bring that planet to life. And I think that's where you're getting all the bad CGI from all the other characters from that planet. Stitch is the only one that actually looks kind of photorealistic as CGI. And the rest of them, like, that was awkward because it didn't match up. And when you're watching a movie like this, you would want all of the CGI to be one way or another. Stitch felt very, very real in the scenes where he's in with humans and everything. and it felt awkward because he is actually still that real on the other planet, and that felt out of place because everything else looked like 3D rendered animation rather than like photorealistic CGI. So I would say that the first act was definitely the weakest act. I would agree with that. But then, oh God, this is the worst part of it for me. I cried way more than I thought I was going to cry in a Lilo and Stitch movie. There were just so many moments where, like Pro said, they really need to give the jokes more time and more laughter. So just for me personally, so I can feel a little bit more relief because it was almost too heart-wrenching at certain times. Like I said, I didn't see the original, so I didn't know what was going to happen. And there were certain things that happened, and I was like, oh my gosh. And very, very surprised, and it was incredibly heart-wrenching.
Yeah, those things didn't happen in the cartoon, so that's why we'll get to those in the spoiler. Okay. But it's very different than the animated version. Vash, I don't think I've given you a chance yet, and so we'll let you finish this out. Your thoughts, and then we're gonna actually do this oddly. We're gonna score it before we go into the spoiler conversation. So, Vash, give us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think it understood the assignment, which was, I think Bob Iger and a couple of executives have referred to these as brand deposits, right? These are to introduce a already established franchise to a new generation, and I think it did that fairly well, as Ron, I think, outlined right there. And I got a lot of feedback from a lot of people in my theater that they felt the same. Some people had seen Lilo and Stitch before, others haven't. And it appeased both sides of that, and I think that's a pretty job well done right there. It wasn't perfect, however. There were things that I think it did lack, certainly the CGI, but again, if this was always meant to be a Disney Plus film, it kind of makes sense that maybe this wouldn't be photorealistic across the line right there. Obviously, that's going to take more budget, and I believe the reported budget for this is about $100 million. That's a far cry from, let's say, Elio, which is rumored to be over $300 million. So, again, that's why Vash, they should immediately greenlight a sequel. Because if you can do this for $100 million and it can make $1.5 billion, do it now before this little girl.
And I didn't even know this was meant to be for Disney Plus at first. If that's the case, then I'll give the CGI a lot more leeway.
Yeah,
I thought it was fine, and I figured it was fine just because they knew the movie and they planned it. Unlike Marvel movies, where they treat the original CGI like the test. And then,
there were sometimes, and that's why I gave another big change a pass as well, which we'll get into later because I knew it was for Disney Plus.
And there was sometimes where it felt like maybe like a made-for-TV movie of the original film a little bit there, but there were others that were quite cinematic.
It did have that Disney movie of the week feel at some points. I'm not going to lie, especially when you'd have no big names in the cast outside of the few cameos we get.
By the way, this picture that was right there where he's picking his nose with his tongue, it's another example of a joke that they didn't stay with it, and they should have. In the animated, they stay with it. Like, He needs to sit there and just chew on the booger, and then she looks at him and goes, "Yeah, he's good. I can tell." And instead, we're going too fast. I'm like, no, make it gross, and then she is attracted to the grossness of him and finds the good. Oh, come on. Anyway, all right, let's get to the review score, and then we'll get to the spoilers. We're going to do super chats between as well. Vash, we'll start with you since we ended with you, and then we'll make our way around the horn with me finishing it out. Vash, score 0 to 10. 10 is the greatest movie you've ever seen. 5 is average. 0, you couldn't stay in the theater and you vomited on the way out the door. What do you got?
It's going to be a 7.5 for me. I know. Somebody was in the theater is like, you better give this a 10. I'm sorry. I can't give this a 10. Not in good conscience. I had to be truthful. I have to be honest. No.
You will not be put in a corner, will you, Vash? You'll give it what you want.
Hey, you know what? I got to be fair. People come from my subjective opinion right there. And after seeing this film, I think I liked it, but I didn't love it. And when I looked at the original Lilo and Stitch, which I was watching actually right before I saw this, I think there were just some things that were done just a little bit better. It would have really benefited from some more emotional sequences, or maybe some time that could have been applied to some of the scenes. It ran so fast, you really couldn't get caught up in the emotion as much as I would have preferred. So 7.5 for me.
Ron, what say you?
Before I get to the score, one item came to my mind real quick that I have to point out, and that has only to do with the introduction. Before this movie begins, it is that title that comes into the castle, Cinderella's castle. I don't know if anybody noticed, but it starts on water. It starts on a river leading up to Cinderella's castle. It starts on the thing that they're getting rid of in Walt Disney World. I thought that was very ironic on the part of Walt Disney.
Ron, on that,
I'm like, okay.
Ron, on that, I don't know if you saw this, and I don't know when they did this. I may be like 10 years late to the game. I didn't realize that the Matterhorn is on the left side of the castle and that Pride Rock is on the right side. I had never noticed that before. Of all the times that I've watched that, never noticed.
Yeah, weird. Anyhow, my score. I have 2 scores. Okay, so overall,
here we go again. Here we go. What do you got, Ron? What are your 2 scores?
The movie overall, I give an 8. Okay, but to the little actress that played Lilo, I got to give her like a 12, 13. I mean, to me, she knocked it out of the park, and she created feels that I didn't even know were possible. I just think that actress is great. But there were I could see a Disney Plus show that's literally just Lilo and Stitch and nobody else in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But overall, I give the movie an 8.
Sequel, Disney, sequel. Wizard, you've been sitting there chomping at the bit, sir. You're ready to go. I'm gonna unleash you. You're going full screen, sir. You've got the show to yourself for a minute. Go for it.
This movie's a good 4.5. And that's only because the little girl playing Lilo is outstanding. She's great. Totally agree with Ron on that. Like I said before, Act 1 is not good. The pacing is terrible. We miss a lot of marks that were great in the original film. Act 2 is cute. That's what you're there for. And that's enjoyable, and the kids are going to love it. And then Act 3 drops the ball. There are characters that were essential that are seemingly not there or replaced in some way. And there are ham-fisted events that take place that absolutely ruin the cuteness that the movie had earned in part 2. Act 3 sinks the film. I don't care if it gets a sequel. I don't care to go back and watch it again. It's too long. I don't care for it. It's the kind of thing of people are going to start saying, well, the movie's not for you. And that's not an excuse for mediocrity. The original film, the animated film, is leagues better than this by it's uncomparable.
Wizard, if you had to give the original, if you gave the animated a score, what would you give it?
Oh, it's a 10 out of 10.
Okay. So I think what's happening here is you're comparing this movie to what you perceive to be as a perfect film, a perfect animated film, and this then shows up very lacking. Whereas the reason Ron is so important for the conversation is because he's never seen the original. He has nothing to compare it against.
Which I would very much agree with. That is absolutely a bias. I will own that bias, but
it's my bias too, by the way. Me and you have the same bias here.
I can't talk about Nani yet, but there's a lot to talk about with that character that she's not a real person. And I think I'll leave it with that. She is not a relatable or real person.
As a fake wizard, you are a great radar for fake and real people. We'll come back to that for the spoiler section. Folks, don't go anywhere. This is getting absolutely it's an interesting conversation we're about to have. And who would have ever thought that a Lilo and Stitch remake would engender the kind of feelings we're about to get into? I think because I'm going to blow this entire show up when we get, hey, YouTube, before you get mad at us, I'm going to blow it up proverbially. I'm going to make things go crazy and haywire because I'm going to ask a question when we get to the spoiler free right off the bat that's going to everybody here's going to go nuts. I hope we don't go to blows. Marvin, tell us what you think. What do you know about the score here?
Like I said, I love the original. I think the original is a 10 out of 10. That being said, I didn't need this to be the original. I didn't need it to be a blow for blow remake of the original because if I want to watch the original, I'm going to go watch the original. It's there. It exists. I can watch it whenever I want. I looked at this as an independent entity. I looked at it as a movie that had something to say about family units. I looked at it as a movie that had heart, that had just real genuine feels. I give this one, I would say, and keep in mind, the original is a 10 for me. This is an 8.5. It loses a half a point because of the villain situation, which we're going to get into in a bit, and it loses a point for Zach Galifianakis. But everything else, I was perfectly fine with in this film. There were things in the beginning that I kind of scratched my head like, well, why is that there? And then I understood why it was there by the end of it. I gave it a lot of leeway because I knew that the script was created as a Disney Plus show. Therefore, that's why the villain situation only loses half a point, because I understand why it had to be that way. So yeah, I give it an 8.5. I really loved it. I loved it more than I thought I was going to love it. I loved it so much that I walked out of that theater, walked right to the concession stand, and bought that popcorn bucket for $45 that Tom has, because I just really, really, it hit me on a very emotional level. I really like movies about family, and they didn't go where I was afraid things were going to go. I thought this is a fine piece of cinema. I liked it a lot.
And folks, when we get to the spoiler section, I'm going to explain what I think's happening here. I think I've got it figured out why some people, and this is going to happen in the market. Some people, maybe the slight majority, are going to really like the movie. And a not insignificant number of people, a large minority, are really not going to like it. And I'm going to explain why in just a minute. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love and adore the original. It was probably one of the last good Disney movies overall, if you ask me, to be honest with you. This is, I thought it was a really great homage to the original version. Now, is it as good as the original? No, we've said that several times over here, and I'm sure we'll get into that even more as we get going. But I think this is the best of the remakes so far that I have seen. So I got to give it an 8 out of 10 at least, maybe a 7.5 at the lowest on the low end.
You don't want to get, Tom, I hear it in your voice. You don't want to give it an 8 or a 7.5. What do you really want to give it, Tom? It's okay. What do you want to give it?
No, I think 8's.
You're okay with 8?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you guys. Look, look, is it going to be everybody's cup of tea? No. Are there going to be some people, especially those who are like super fans of the original, that are going to have problems? Oh, of course there are. Right? Because I'm one of those nerds who nitpicks the hell out of everything. But at the end of the day, I went into the theater. I started smiling and giggling from the beginning. By the end of the film, I got emotionally involved in the movie, in the story. I thought they did a pretty good job with balancing the new stuff with the old stuff. Sure, there was things I wish they hadn't gotten rid of, and there was some things in the new stuff that I didn't think they necessarily needed. But overall, they did a pretty darn good job of a live action remake. And I know a lot of people are already trying to compare this to How to Train Your Dragon before it even comes out. But I think one thing people aren't taking into consideration with this one compared to How You Train Your Dragon is How You Train Your Dragon. I've seen several people go, well, the original was already a 3D CG animated cartoon. The new version doesn't look all that much different. That's the big difference you get here. This really does go out of its way to try to make Lilo and Stitch feel like it's in the real world compared to the very stylized cartoon world that the original film is in. Now, that being said, that might be some people's issues, is that some of that stylization is lost in the translation because you can't have, that translate into the real world unless you're just going to do a CGI 3D remake, at which point, what's the point? Right.
So, yeah, and another thing,
the Lion King then, but yeah.
Another thing to say is that both How to Train Your Dragon and Stitch created by Chris Sanders. So it is the year of Mr. Sanders. All right, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 because of what it is. There are things here that I really disagree with in terms of direction and changes. And I would say that the majority of the changes, ooh, look at that CGI, that's so bad. The majority of the changes that they do, I think, are done in a way that does not service the movie for the better. There are some changes that are necessary, and there are some changes that do work and some additions that do work. And so that's all lovely. But I think it's a 7 out of 10 because I think kids are really going to love it. I think it's inoffensive. I think it's likely to make $1.5 billion. Although that's not affecting the score. I'm just saying, I think families are going to enjoy this. And I think that those who dislike it are going to dislike it for a very particular, deeply philosophical and emotional reason that we'll get into in just a minute. But a 7 out of 10 is where I land with this. I think the original for me is a 9.5 out of 10. And that's the bias that I and Fake Wizard, I think, are having here is that I think the first one's just about perfect. It's an inversion, right, of the typical Disney story. The idea is if you take perfect villainy and unleash it on the world, like, can a little girl convince a villain to be just good enough to stay with her and be part of her family? But you don't have to be completely, unvillainous then. He's still a little miscreant.
That's not exactly what the original film is about, though, either. Same thing here. To a point, yes, that is part of the story. But the real story is Lilo learning how much of a brat she is by having to deal with Stitch and becoming more mature herself. That's the main theme of the story, right? And Stitch then learning through her how to behave.
Yeah, that's the yin and the yang of it, I would say. I think you're exactly right on that. That's the yin and the yang, and then all of that is part of Ohana.
That doesn't happen in this one.
So 7 out of 10, folks, what does that mean? It means that for this channel, all combined together, everybody joining together, Lilo and Stitch receives a 7.3 out of 10, which on our scoreometer is very good. A 10 would be perfect, a 9 would be nearly perfect, an 8 would be excellent, and 7s are very good because 5s are average. We're tougher here, and we follow the bell curve. So 7.3 out of 10. Folks, it's almost time for spoiler territory, and boy, oh boy, are we about to have at it. I am worried. No, we're going to have to be careful, panel, because I think some of us are going to get aggravated, and I'm going to be the one to initiate that. All right, guys, we're going to try to keep this civil because it can get very heated very quickly because what I'm going to say, and I'm going to do it on purpose. We ready? I don't like Nani. I think she's a bad person. My wife disagrees with me. She saw the movie too. She does not believe that I have this right, but I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it clearly for everybody out there. Nani gets some medical expenses that she can't pay for, and she finds out she can throw her sister into foster care and that the payment will not be there. So she's willing to kick her kid sister into foster care to get the medical bills off of her. And at that point, I said, screw this woman.
I hadn't even thought of that. You're absolutely right.
That's happening whether she agrees to it or not.
I was going to say, I think that's a misrepresentation of what happens.
Yeah. No,
that was
because it's actually
guys.
her fault. Because you guys got to remember, she was told by Friday to get freaking insurance, and she did not. If she had gotten insurance, then it wouldn't have been a problem. So
and
the whole point of the scene,
OG Nani is not asking her permission here. She's phrasing it nicely. She's telling her what's about to happen.
You have to tell what OG Nani means now. People won't know what that means.
The woman that plays the social worker in this, which I thought was a very nice nod, is the voice actress from Nani in the original.
Tia Carrere?
Yeah.
Tia Carrere. And they do this multiple times, by the way. For example, the manager at the Luau, that was the original David. The grandmother was an original a original voice actor for the original film. So they do this, and Chris Sanders obviously playing Stitch. I actually like those nods, but that's why the social worker was changed from like Bubbles' character. Those were split apart.
I thought Chris Sanders also had a cameo where he was taking a sign down. I thought I caught him doing that. Okay, here's the other thing I don't like about Nani. The other thing I don't like about her, and I think this is why people are going to have kind of a visceral reaction to her. The ending is different here, folks. Stitch drowns, and he chooses to die. He chooses to be drowned so that Lilo will be able to live. So he's so heavy in the water that she can't lift him out. And so he pulls her hand away. He holds his hand as if to say that he now knows what family is as he drowns. Nani comes in and saves Lilo, but Lilo is already saved. She's out of danger. And Lilo begs Nani, Stitch is down there, save Stitch. And Nani says, no. And I don't know why she says no. And they begin to paddle away. And poor little freaking Stitch, people are crying in the theater because poor little Stitch is like old Yeller at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, staring up at the shadows of his family, leaving him behind. It's the anti-Ohana. And
I have an answer for this.
Thank goodness at the last minute, Nani's like, you know what? Letting her new blue dog die is probably not the best thing here when I can simply swim down and get him. Now, when she swims down, she realizes, oh, this sucker's pretty heavy. He's like a dead weight. I'm gonna have to trudge my way out of this thing. But she doesn't know that before she swims down there. And I was sitting there thinking, why did they write it this way? Because they're making her come across as a really sucky person, Like, Go down and grab the dog. All right, what do you say, Pam?
I think it's because they underplayed the part where, with the drowning part earlier, like either they cut it out or it's played out differently than it is in the original film, to where, because that's the first place where she has like concerns about Stitch and realizes that Stitch pulls her down literally that first time. Remember, she even says it. She says it quickly in this one, but in the original film, she turns around and she flat out blames him, like she's about to kill him. At that point,
she kicks him. Yeah. No, is Nani was not present for Stitch doing good things and connecting with Lilo on such an emotional level. In Nani's mind, this is still the thing that nearly drowned her sister before, and the reason why this is happening. When she goes down there, Nani has no emotional connection to Stitch.
Oh, hold on a second, Marvin.
Hold on. Let me just get this out.
Real quick. I do need to say this. You're making a fantastic point, because you've outsmarted me, at least. I don't know about the rest of the panel. The mistake I'm making, perhaps, is that I'm taking the original movie and what I know about Stitch and what I know about Nani, and I'm accidentally inserting what she would then know about Stitch into this movie. You're on it.
Yeah, she never has that moment in this movie from the original where she's just like, talk, I know you can, and he goes, okay, and she's like, oh my gosh, this thing is intelligent and talks. She does not have an emotional connection to Stitch at all. This is the thing that brought this down on her. When she goes down to save him, what I like is that she is going down there for Lilo. She's going down there because she's doing it for Lilo.
Oh,
and
darn
so
it,
it's not a moment of I care for this thing. It's I care for my sister. And because she loves this thing so much, I am going to go down there and get this thing, even when it's difficult and I almost drown.
Are we missing the Pirates of the Caribbean walk she does on the ocean floor?
But they set that up before.
I like that,
and I was fine with all that,
but
right?
She wasn't prepared for that, and they established that in water he becomes way more dense, which is something that I know is worked on more in the other films, and they kind of hint at it here. But she's just ready to do that at the snap of a finger. I don't believe it at all.
You're not remembering it correctly. She doesn't do it at the snap of a finger. She goes down there and she tries to swim up with him multiple times and can't. And then she's like, okay, this is what I have to do.
But she doesn't come up.
The scene is longer than you're remembering it.
And that was after Lilo had practically like begged her, like, you know, in tears, like Pro was saying, like, I'm sure the whole theater probably was upset at that point, because you're going, why is she not down there trying to save him? Why? And here's where I was. And this is where I think you guys might have enjoyed it better or thought it was a better ending had they done it the way I thought they were heading towards. Because there's one moment where she's got his hand, right, before he lets go. And if they had, you know, Nani's hand come down and grab Lilo, and then David's hand grab hers, and then Granny's hand grab his, and them all pull up together as family.
That's what I thought they were going to do.
That's what I thought it was headed towards. But then it was
going to be the Guardians of the Galaxy moment where they all join the hand. Yeah, that's what I thought.
I would have been fine with that too. But the way it worked out, though, they set it up well enough in the beginning that I didn't have an issue with that, because they have this whole thing where she's, you know, this marine. She wants to be a marine biologist. She's into the surfing.
Right.
She trained for all this stuff and
breathe underwater.
No, but they show her like training to be like a surfer, because remember that's why she's the instructor, right? It's like, oh, let's do something that you love to do, and that photo album kind of montages her working out underwater for, you know, to lead up to that moment. It's not kind of out of the blue.
I literally said to myself. Yeah, I literally said to myself at that point, I counted in my head. I'm like, okay, she's got 3 minutes. She's probably learned how to hold her breath for 3 minutes under stress, underwater, because I've had experience with Pro knows I've done everything. I've had experience with this.
True.
You are a Renaissance.
I'll say this.
No, I think they did a fine job setting that up.
He's a dense
I thought that was fine.
Fake Wizard, hold strong, because these guys are kind of persuading me a little bit, and I need you to be the rock, okay?
No,
you're pushing me up to an 8 out of 10 now if I'm not careful.
It's when you compare, and again, this is what we just talked about, and I agree, I do have a bias here because the other film is superior, but you compare the action set piece at the end, like it's Lilo and Stitch, the animated film, ends with this funny, heartfelt action set piece where Stitch is kind of flying around being the superhero. We don't get that at all.
This is not that movie. This is a different movie.
I understand that, but this is weaker than the movie that this is based on. I do get it, but it's that whole action piece of it, which is funny, is replaced with this, where she walks the ocean. So I think that was a mistake.
I don't think it's unbelievable that she walks the ocean like that. I have done bell diving before, where I have had a dense weighted belt attached to me that sunk me to the bottom of the ocean, and I could not swim up with it, but I could walk with it.
No, I think they did a pretty good job of establishing her surf background, her wanting to be a marine biologist. She was on her way to go to college for it until this tragedy happened. And I think they even said it, the other part they have is when Lilo says, "This is what mom and dad wanted for you." I don't think she's just saying, and she says, "They told me." I don't think she's just saying that like, how she says things like she does. I think she literally means that her parents, that was one of the last things she remembers them telling her, was that they were so proud and they can't wait for Nani to have this, opportunity to become a marine biologist. Right?
That's the thing. Nani doesn't want to let her go.
Let me throw something in here, because I think this is why kids are going to enjoy the movie maybe more. And this is why I gave it a 7 out of 10. And you guys are starting to get me where I would go up to a 7.5. But we're stuck with it. We'll stay with it. So for me, it's a logical, I have to make a logical jump that I was struggling to do with the idea that there's a foster care social worker who's like trying to convince this woman to give up a kid, because I know that in the real world, basically they're overwhelmed in social services. Like, they're completely overwhelmed. So anything they could do, any way they could get this woman food stamps or give her some kind of, housing assistance, like those would be the things you would do first. And so for this movie to be like, "Hey, we'd really like to get this kid away from you because you're having a hard time," like, that was a tough jump for me to make inside
That's
my
not
head.
what I got from it. What I got from it was this, and this is what I was saying earlier, where in the original film, it feels like Nani's a little bit older than she is here. This movie, she feels like she's probably 18, 19 years old. Mm-hmm. Like, she feels like she's a kid way in over her head. I don't agree with the fact where you said she felt older earlier, Wizard. I think it was.
No, it was me. It was me.
Was it you?
Yeah, I agree. She feels like a kid, which is why it takes away from the fact that she's not processing anything emotionally.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem. I think that, and this is maybe my psychology background. Yeah. Well, no, I don't say it's a problem with the film. I think that's part of her problem. Like, I'm literally saying that.
The film doesn't do a good enough job. Well, then we're speculating, because the film doesn't do a good enough job to establish that at all.
Maybe in your perspective, but
here's a scene with it. When they're walking, this is when Cobra Bubbles and the social worker, they're going to take Lilo, and there's this moment where she's walking up the stairs. There is zero emotion on her face. I'm looking close. I'm like, is she tearing up? Where Nani is walking up the stairs and the social worker puts a hand on her shoulder, zero emotion is being shown.
I'm not sure we saw the same scene then, because she was about to cry and like she was about to say, "No, wait, I can't do this."
She pauses.
That to me is the face that you make when you are doing everything in your power to not break down.
I didn't believe it at 1 second.
Because to finish where I was coming from earlier,
the actress.
Is this version of Nani? See, the original version of Nani, we have no idea who she is outside of just trying to. Like I said, she comes off as kind of this lazy chick who was kind of thrusted into becoming a parent a little too early, but she didn't feel like a kid who had to give up her entire future. That's the difference between that Nani and this Nani. This Nani actually sacrificed a free ride at a very prestigious marine biology school to raise her sister, right? And so she's got all these people around her who are telling her, "You can do this. We will help you raise this kid." And she won't listen to any of them. And at the same time, she's in way over her head. She cannot, apologize for the language. She's in way over her head, right? And this is coming from a single parent, right? Especially of a parent of an autistic child. And I couldn't imagine having a kid that young, having to deal with my kid at that age, that young, if that makes sense. So you're basically, this is the way I took it, is even if she's 20 or 19, she's still dealing with a 6-7-year-old at that age. And she's barely out of becoming a teenager herself. So, like, I think the thing that people are missing is that in this movie that I think they kind of put upon the characters that's not so present in the last original film, but I feel is like this looming thing over the film that maybe you're kind of getting from it, and maybe I'm wrong, is that neither one of these two have faced the death of their parents. And instead of facing the death with their parents, you have Lilo, who is desperately fighting to keep their relationship sister-sister. And you have, Nani, who has to be the parent. She can't be the sister anymore. She can't be her sister's best friend. And she's struggling with that. Mm-hmm. And that's what I seen out of this movie in comparison to the original.
Can I make a comment on that real quick?
Get in here, Ron. What do you got?
So it leads me to what my favorite line is, I think, in the entire movie. The one that really made me tear up was Nani's had it. She's fed up. She's at her wit's end, and she goes outside, and she goes to a place that was very special to Lilo, but Nani didn't remember that it was very special. And Lilo has, remember when we went camping here? And then they cuddle up together, and she goes, and Lilo says, I was wrong earlier. I don't like you just as a sister. I do like you as a mom.
And she's struggling with that.
I lost it for that.
Well, because I think for Lilo I think that's the moment where you actually admit to yourself, even that young, that yes, this has changed. Things have changed. My parents are gone. That's the moment.
And that's what I'm saying is I don't think either one of these two has really faced that yet. Nani is burying herself into becoming a brand new mom and avoiding the point of the facts, right? And I think that's what her social worker is kind of trying to say in that one scene. She's like, I know you just lost your mother and you're under all this extreme pressure, but maybe this is too much for you. Right. She's trying to say it in the nicest terms possible. Yeah.
I think also, Tom, you have a situation here where Nani is in the anger stage of grief at one point.
Exactly. Yeah.
When she says to him, like, well, we were left behind. And like, that's the anger stage of grief right there.
That's it. That's the other thing. Thank you for bringing that up, because that's the other thing is like, she is a different Nani from the original movie, but I don't want to say it's a bad representation because I think it's a more realistic representation. She is angry. She has that displaced anger that you can't do anything with after you lose somebody like that, and you don't know how to express it. And Lilo's the same way. That's what I'm saying. You basically have two kids that are trying to deal with this grief. You don't have an adult in the situation to help regulate that. And that's where this movie really kind of keys in on.
And the social worker thing, if I could touch on the social worker thing, to me, the social worker thing with getting her to try to agree to this is because that is an easier place to get to than we are going to pull this child from your house while she screams and cries and you beg us not to.
Yeah.
They are trying by any means necessary to gain accept, because like this is what is going to happen, because this is not we are not leaving a child with a 19-year-old who has no job and no health insurance. Like, we're not going to do that. So this is gonna happen, and you can either accept it or this can get turned into a really bad situation. And
which
that's
is another
why
reason
I think she was being so patient with her.
Why I think they brought in, Tia Carrere to play the new character, because Cobra Bubbles is way too intimidating from the start. Yeah. And I liked the change. I thought that made more sense. Although I still wish Ving Rhames would have played him. It makes more sense this way. Because then because like you guys, as people are saying in the chat, normally social services doesn't do jack squat. Right. Like, that's where I can understand where Tia Carrere's character is actually involved in this case. And she's trying to do her best to help these two because of the tragedy that they just had happen to them. And it is obviously a smaller community, right? You can kind of get that respect or aspect from the film.
I took this scene in the hospital not as like, hey, you have a big bill now, you can sell it to your sister and you don't have to pay it anymore. I took that as, look what almost happened, and look how completely unprepared you are to face the consequences of this event. It is
when you were just told to do that. Yeah.
It is better for this child if this is not the way we do things. If you, and that is, I think I don't think it's a selfish choice. I think that's the moment where it's like, oh my gosh, I am really unprepared for this. Like if something like this happens again, if she skins her knees and gets stitches, we're screwed.
This is why Tia says the line, you need to think what's best for Lilo. That's kind of hitting that home there.
Let me go to Fake Wizard, and there's one topic we have not yet touched on, and that is there's a character missing here.
Yes.
Wizard, what about Gontu? Gontu's not there. He's gone to maybe a sequel, but did the film miss him? Did it need him? It definitely changed the ending, like tremendously.
Yeah. I think, and just based on the reactions that you guys are having to this, I'm hopeful that I'm just jaded and my heart is made of ice now on a film like this, because what I saw is they took Gantu out to put Zach Galifianakis in as Jumba the villain. Pleakley is more annoying than he was in the original, and I just saw everything with Nani as she really could do no wrong, even though she clearly was doing wrong. The film did not take a moment to emphasize that wrong had been done, whether, on accident or whatnot, or that mistakes were happening. Like, there was no real moment of vulnerability with Nani, where we got a second with her to see how she was processing this. And I wish we got that. I wish we got more anger out of her. Like, Tom, what you were saying, if she's in that anger phase, let's get into that. Let's just take a beat and explore that a second, instead of making stupid jokes with Pleakley and Jumba that are not landing at all.
They do
not land. I agree with some of that. Like, we'll get into that in a moment, but I just want to rebut, not really rebut, but really kind of add to what you're saying, because I agree. And I think that it might be our fault that this happened. And I'll tell you why. I think that all that stuff that you're asking for got wound up on the cutting room floor because there was a relationship with her and David that got completely removed from the movie because they overreacted to everything we've said in the last few years. And instead of dealing with a straight relationship in the movie, they completely just removed that from the film. And that's the stuff that got sacrificed because of that. Because like I said, there is scenes in the original film between her and David where she's talking about her struggle and her whatnot. And I bet you, I'm just saying, I bet you $5 that those scenes were in the film initially and they got sacrificed to, we're not going to have them be a couple in this movie, at least not obviously a couple, if that makes sense.
I would have agreed with that if they didn't belittle him every scene he's in.
Oh, and that's the thing, is David kind of gets
him every scene he's in. This is another movie where they belittle all the men.
I'll agree on him. I don't know about everybody else, because I think Cobra Bubbles is fine.
Cobra Bubbles he never gets belittled.
Yeah, there's a few characters that are fine, but I will agree that David gets the shaft.
There's a moment with Bubbles and the head alien. I don't remember what's her name. The head alien lady.
Nobody remembers.
Grand Councilwoman. Grand Councilwoman.
There's a moment in the animated. There's a moment between them where it's like, hey, I was part of that original. Remember that operation? I think it said something like 1969, and there's like a nod, wink moment. Yeah. There's nothing of that, but she looks at him like, "What are you looking at?" She looks at him like, "Why are you staring at me like that?" There was an instant chemistry where they recognized each other in the animated, and I was sitting there waiting for that because that would have been a cool factor for this Bubbles. But instead, he's just standing there, like just looking, like all smiley and stuff. Like
I think it just got smirk on his face. Again,
yeah. And there's nothing there. So I'm like, wait a second. So she's like looking at him a little condescending. So
which is really kind of silly, and I agree with you, because what happened is that and the joke about the mosquitoes got completely axed somewhere.
Yeah, I missed the mosquito joke. That was
I was like, why did you do that?
Yes,
because to me that's like the Babelfish joke. That's like the Babelfish joke in Guardians of the Galaxy when they cut it out of the movie. I'm like, you cut the best joke out.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. All right, so
the Gantu. I'm sorry, I got off course, but the Gantu thing, replacing Jumba 100% for Gantu is going to hurt them in the sequel. Because now I don't know if you guys watched the animated show. I did. I loved that show when it was on. Hamsterville being the real villain as like a number 2 for Jumba was great. He's a great character, but you need Gantu for that. But you need Jumba to bring up all the other cousins. We're not going to get that now. Or they're going to have to figure out a new way to write it in.
I don't think they're going to have the 625 other ones. Sorry, go ahead.
Money says they will.
I see why they had to get rid of Gantu if this was originally going to be a Disney Plus. It's the reason why Pleakley and Jumba spend most of the movie as humans, because they didn't have the CGI budget for that. And you can't turn Gantu into a human. Yeah. He's a 20-foot tall shark. So I do not like that they turned Jumba into a villain. I hated that because Jumba, I loved it. I am cartoonishly evil. Everything he sees, he's only meant for destruction.
Right. He's David Harbour from Thunderbolts.
Right. And then by the end of it, he's one of the good guys, and he stays on Earth, and he's part of the main cast from then on in. I like that about Jumba, that he's this tweener that ends up becoming part of the family at the end. I think they did that character very dirty in this.
He gifts a hover car. He gifts a hover car for Christmas. All right, guys, it's been a robust discussion. Probably my favorite review we've ever done. I mean, we have really went some places, and there are no incorrect opinions, but especially not for me. Real quick though, guys, let's talk about opinions when it comes to box office. Before we go, let's go around again, top to bottom. We'll start with Vash. Vash, how much do you think this is going to make at the box office now that you've seen it?
Yeah, initially I was like, I don't know if this is going to crack $1 billion. Now I'm pretty convinced here. I think it's going to have great whom from audiences, and the opening weekend looks huge. Globally, this thing is projecting, I think, top end 270, which is insane. And again, folks, this is what what is it? Elio is going to need to do in its first weekend. I don't think it's going to get anywhere close to that in order to make its money back. I think we're going to top out maybe 1.2. 1.1. If it really starts out that strong worldwide, yeah, no question there.
Ron, any guess on where you think this is going to be in terms of box office when it finishes its run now?
$1.157 billion.
Woo! That's some money right there now.
1.15.
All right. Wizard, where's it going to be?
1.15 and $1 over Price is Right rules.
Well played. Well played. All right, Marvin.
I'm going to say 1.2. I think it's going to have a very strong opening. I think it's going to have legs. I think that this is a movie that people are going to be, I think this is going to have Mufasa type legs, but more so. I think that people are going to be going to see this for many, many weekends. Like, I think Mission Impossible is going to make all the money that it's going to make in the next 2 weeks. And I think this movie is going to continue making money for at least 2 months. I think 1.2, and that is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because I genuinely liked the film. It's a curse because I think Snow White had spooked Disney in being like, no more live action remakes. But now when this cracks $1 billion, they're going to be like, more live action remakes.
I have a statistic for you, Pro, to end this on. In Italy, actually, from Wednesday box office, the take for this is about 1.4 million. That, in that market, on that day, is more than all of the Marvel films that have recently come out combined.
Wow. Good point. Tom, you're an expert in this area. Where's it going to land?
I think domestically, it's going to make $626 million.
Oh, come on now. What a play. What a play.
I think it's going to play. I think you guys are all about the same in line. I think 1.2 to 1.5 billion is very, very likely. Unlike a lot of the films this year, like Minecraft, this thing has 6 legs.
I get that.
And just to kind of finish my point earlier, and that's why I keep bringing up the 626, is I don't think there was 625 other experiments. I think Stitch is the only experiment. I think that I could be wrong. In the movie,
show him the cousins.
Did they show him? I missed them then because
he says, "I'm going to turn him into Leroy." I'm going to turn you into 627. Like,
oh well,
what?
No, that's where I thought. Okay, let me finish my point because I didn't see anything about any other experiments. When he said he was going to turn him into 627, and he mentioned he had a glitch before, that the whole thing come back around. I took it as he has been experimenting on Stitch all this time. This is the 627th variant that he's given him, and now he's just taking away his emotions. Is basically what he's going to do this time. And that means he's going to be perfect. It just took him this many tries to make him perfect. That's what I took out of this movie. I didn't see any evidence unless I missed it.
No, there's a pop-up on screen that shows the other, because there are other characters.
It's in there. Yeah. They got an Angel, the pink one, is in
I
there.
could be wrong, but that's the way I kind of took it. But yeah.
All right, one that likes sandwiches. I want him in the next one.
Besides Pudge. Let me give you where I think this is going to be, and I'm going to have a different take than everybody so far. And that puts me in a precarious place because I could be flat out wrong. But I've got some numbers on my side here. Out of Box Office Pro, they have just updated this. And they are now looking at a 4-day, which is the weekend. But they're looking at a potential domestic that tops $200 million. In fact, it is now looking more likely than not that this will eclipse $200 million for the weekend. Now, I'm assuming that this movie is going to have actually a bigger international than domestic, because I think this is going to play very well in all cultures. It has, for whatever reason, so many cultures really like watching the Polynesian setting. And so I think this could be, a 1.5 to 1 in terms of international to domestic. Now, what that means is this actually has a shot in its first weekend of making something like $500 million worldwide. If I apply a 3x to this, which I think is something we should consider, it's possible, I think this is going to top 1.5 billion. And I'm comfortable saying I think it might hit 1.6. So that's where I think this is going right now. As of right now, $1.6 billion. I don't know what that means for Mission Impossible. I don't know what that means for Elio. But I think 1.6 is on the table at this point. Anybody disagree with that? Anybody think I've gone mad?
I do.
No, I can see it.
I do, just because I don't think.
What do you got? Woodshed. Here we go.
I don't think China is going to support this as much as maybe Disney would want, especially post-pandemic. I've looked at the China numbers. They look a little soft to me. But Europe and Latin America, they are very, very strong. Latin America, though, per theater is going to be a little bit less than maybe what China would have provided. So that's kind of the drawback there. At least when I'm looking at it. I'll also give you this one as well. Mission Impossible, I was looking at the PLFs, and Stitch has the PLF game pretty much locked down, all but like one showing. Yeah. So I think that really is going to hurt Mission Impossible. Whoever made that decision to put it on this day, got to be fired immediately.
I hate it. I've said this now, and I bet Tom's been saying the same thing. Mission Impossible releasing it this week is just a tragedy. It's just a terrible, awful decision. Mission Impossible, if it came out last weekend, would have made, gosh, I don't know, 50, 60, 70% more than
push it off a little bit or something like that. Because, honestly, that 626 idea was a great idea. Too bad Disney didn't think of that and just hold this off till June 26th and then let Mission Impossible do its thing. But at this point, Tom's the one who's probably going to lose out, and I've been saying that for a while. Mission Impossible is just way too long. And the other thing with this movie is, I know we're at the major Disney nerds here, but you guys, like, the general audience is like this. My kid is of that age where this is why I know this is true. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to go see it. And you're going to have 3 generations that are into this movie, like the ones that saw it with their kids, and then you have the kids that grew up with it who now have kids and they want to see it with their kids. And that's going to be a big chunk of the Mission Impossible audience, because this is not going to be a movie where you chuck the kids into one theater and then you go to see Mission Impossible, because it's almost impossible to do that unless you think your kid's going to sit through Lilo and Stitch twice in a row without being too antsy. Right? Well, I don't know.
Give them a popcorn bucket the second time.
They might. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying kids won't, but I just want to really quick, because I didn't get to comment real quick on the Jamba being the villain thing. I get it, why they did it for the movie. And honestly, I can understand. And reason why I think my theory is even plausible is because if this was meant to be a Disney Plus movie, it's easier to do a sequel to this if you don't have a bunch of other experiments and CGI characters that you're having to go after. But you have Jumba escape, and he's coming after Stitch specifically. And there's a thing, like that is what I was thinking the sequel is going to be more or less. And that's where Jumba's going to be probably the villain of the series. And that's where things will probably change. But if not, they'll probably get smart and just do it the other way, because if this thing makes the money, then why wouldn't they?
And if that's what happens, and if a sequel is greenlit quickly, I don't think a budget's going to be a concern for a sequel.
Right.
Yeah, that goes out the door.